Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the fourth and final Women in Water lecture for 2021. I want to begin by acknowledging that we are all participating from the traditional territories of First Peoples of this country. The University of Saskatchewan is located in Saskatoon on Treaty 6, the traditional territory of the Cree and the homeland of the Métis. Please take a moment with yourself to acknowledge the land where you live and work and give appreciation for providing this setting for today's positive discussion. I am Andrea Rowe, the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Specialist for the Global Institute for Water Security and Global Water Futures at the University of Saskatchewan, and today's host for the Women in Water lecture. Just before we begin, I'd like to go through a few logistics. If you would like to listen to today's talk in French, please click the interpretation globe in the bottom right-hand corner of the Zoom panel, and you'll be able to watch the talk and listen in French. In addition, if you would like to experience the captions, please press the live CC transcript, and you will be able to see live captions. The event will be approximately 1 hour long, and all participants will remain muted for that hour, but you feel free to please put your questions in the Q&A, and we will take time to answer them in the last 20 minutes of the hour. I would also like to thank our sponsors for today's event: Global Water Futures, the Global Water Futures Young Professionals Program, and the Global Institute for Water Security at the University of Saskatchewan, for making the resources available to have this lecture series today and for the entire 2021 season. In addition, we would like to thank all of the young professionals joining us today, but especially those from the University of Saskatchewan, Laurier, Waterloo, and McMaster. It's great to see so many of you have joined us today. And this Women in Water lecture series was conceived in recognition that we need more opportunities to showcase women researchers in water science and to provide leadership opportunities for young professionals in the field. It was also conceived to draw attention to the gendered impacts and nature of water research and the need to include gender-based analysis in water research. Each of our lectures focuses on a specific water-related theme, and today's theme is the topic of women in the field. Fieldwork is an important aspect of any scientific or many scientific careers, and the source of both personal and professional satisfaction for many researchers because of the opportunity to advance knowledge through firsthand experience, build relationships with communities, and advance your own scientific career. However, fieldwork often seems inaccessible for too many people due to the high cost of outdoor gear, travel, family responsibilities, disability, or other physical limitations. In addition, in a recent study published by the American Geophysical Union, found that 34% of LGBTQ2 plus people have refused fieldwork because of fears related to identity. And furthermore, 62% of cisgender white men reported feeling unsafe in the field due to their LGBTQ2 plus identity. And so this is a difficult trend. Cisgender women of all races and transgender people of color reported the highest rates of refusing to do fieldwork because of safety issues, 50 and 46% of people respectively. Finally, 75% of cisgender women of color reported feeling unsafe during fieldwork. These numbers are a reminder that there is still much more work to be done to make science inclusive. And so with that in mind, we are delighted to welcome our host and speakers for today to talk about their joys and the wonderful experiences they've had throughout their careers doing fieldwork, but also ways to be thoughtful and to make fieldwork more inclusive for everyone. And so with that in mind, I would like to welcome our moderator for today, Lindsay Langs. Do we see Lindsay come up here? Yes. Hi, Lindsay. Welcome.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you.
Lindsay is a research officer and technician working at the Centre for Hydrology's Cold Water Lab in the Canadian Rocky Mountains, based in Canmore, Alberta. She completed her MSc degree in forest hydrology at the University of Waterloo and continues to apply her field and research experience within the Mountain Water Futures Project, pulling from 5 years of field-based experience. Thank you, Lindsay, for coming and agreeing to be the host for today's event. And we
Thank
look
you
forward.
for the invite.
We're
very excited.
Forward to the questions that you're going to ask. And we are now going to welcome our speakers, and I just want to share some slides with you. So our first guest is Stephanie Powell, and Stephanie is a graduate of the Water Resource Engineering Technology program at Saskatchewan Polytechnic Palliser campus. She's worked at Environment Canada and Climate Change with the Water Survey of Canada for 15 years. She graduated from the department's apprenticeship program as hydrometric technologist, and she has several supervisory roles within the department. She was promoted to head of operations of Saskatchewan in March of 2020. So welcome, Stephanie. And here's a few pictures of Stephanie out in the field, which I'm sure she will talk about in more detail coming up soon.
Thank you for having me.
And finally, our next guest is Lorie Ford. Lorie has a Master's of Environmental Science, is a water quality technologist with the Saskatchewan Water Security Agency. She has worked in the field of fisheries, limnology, and unregulated drinking water over her 17 years in government. Her primary responsibility is to ensure the monitoring and reporting of water quality for streams, rivers, and lakes in Saskatchewan. So welcome, Lorie. And we've got a few pictures of her out here in the field as well. I think I can advance this. Yes, a few more.
Thanks, Andrea.
And these are great pictures. And if you want me to bring them up later and reference them specifically, happy to do that. So I'll just stop sharing the lovely photos there. And I'll turn it over to you, Lindsay, to ask some questions.
Great, thank you so much, Andrea. We're all very excited to be here today. And as mentioned, we only have an hour, so we're just gonna get right into it. So we're gonna start by perhaps both of our speakers could tell us about their career journeys and progressions and why they got into the field. Maybe we'll start with Steph just to try and keep things organized.
My career began when with my post-secondary education. I went to what was formerly known as SciAS in Moose Jaw. I took the Water Resource Engineering Technology program and I graduated in 2003. As part of that program, the instructors had previously done a contract with Water Survey for a rather intensive 3-month training session for all new employees. And they were quite big fans of the program and endorsed it as a good employer. So that's where my first exposure to Water Survey was. I worked on a work term at the Department of Highways in Saskatchewan on a survey crew. And after I graduated for a time, I worked in a water treatment plant. From that, I knew that I wanted a nice balance of field and office work. I thoroughly enjoyed gathering data as well as analyzing it back in the office. And Water Survey is a very good fit for that. I graduated from the APTP program. All staff with Water Survey go through an apprenticeship program and have done so since the 70s. It takes almost 4 years to move through the entire program. And at that point, you are an EG5. And we don't consider staff that have recently graduated from the program to be senior staff. It usually takes quite a bit more experience before we consider someone as fully trained and a senior staff member. I worked in data control, which was management of data and helping to move it to users. via things like the website. I participated in a program in 2011 when we established new software. And from those experiences, I moved forward to an EG6. And now I am the only female EG7 in Canada. I'm the head of operations for the province of Saskatchewan and all of the lovely territory that we cover. So that's a summary of my career and how I got into this.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And Lorelei, how about you?
Yeah, so I started an undergrad in biology in 1996 at the University of Regina. And through my degree, I did a minor in geography. I started realizing that, good research was based on good data collection, and I wanted to get some more experience in the field. So when they opened up the Bachelor of Science program in environmental biology between the SciAS Woodland campus at the time and the University of Regina, I was very jazzed to try that out. So I went up there and checked it out for a weekend and decided that I also needed to get that undergrad. So I had almost graduated from biology and I decided to just put it on hold, go up to PA for 2 years and basically get a technical diploma in integrated resource management. The field work covered, fisheries, forestry, like large and small mammal management, and wildlife, and parks and recreation, and even conservation officer training and that sort of thing. And what I found is, like Stephanie, I loved the field work and I wanted to be able to transition, like take data from the field and then take it into the office and do stuff with it there. So I had worked 2 summers for the Ministry of Environment and Fisheries, done fish habitat assessments and fish population studies up in Meadow Lake and Prince Albert. That was very interesting. And then I moved to a contract with the Water Security Agency when it formed and did some fisheries work there, but eventually got a full-time position in lake stewardship. So we went around to a bunch of lakes in Saskatchewan and I helped volunteers sample the water quality of their lakes. And so there's a lot of education and speaking engagements and meetings and helping them out with whatever their goals may be. I also did well water testing on private wells for farm sites in Saskatchewan and kind of got an affection for being in the field and helping people with their water quality management on unregulated water for their private systems. So I had that experience and I ran into my supervisor, soon to be supervisor at the university, and we started talking about how we both had this concern and care for people's perception of drinking water in rural Saskatchewan. And so that is what I engaged my master's, that was my topic that I engaged in, looking at drinking water risk perception and the impact on human health risk. So I've had 22 years in total in the field between my fisheries work and aquatic work. And so, I'm now looking for, looking at the latter half of my career and all the excitement that I'm hopefully going forward with there.
Thank you for sharing. I think it's super interesting, and I think a lot of our viewers will probably have the same perspective about how we've all come from such maybe different places or started in different disciplines and kind of progressed our way into different types of jobs, different types of field work. As we went on, I initially started in geography and then added on a joint honors in earth science. And then from there did forest hydrology in my master's. And now I'm doing lots of different types of hydrology work in the mountains. And it's kind of just a progression that keeps on building. So with that being said, and both of your experiences in fieldwork, what traits do you possess that drew you to fieldwork in the first place? And what traits do you think are beneficial for working in the field? And we'll start with Lorelei on this one.
Sure. I think independence is a big deal. If you like working independently and you love being outdoors, that's a big deal. I think you have to be a detail-oriented person and, have to have good planning skills, because you could sometimes be working in teams or could be working in places where, you don't have a lot of control over your environment. I think being a good problem solver, is also a good trait to have if you're going to be working in the field.
Yeah, definitely. And Stephanie?
My answer is actually very much mirror what Lorelei said. Enjoying being outside is critical in all types of weather. Most fieldwork is in less than ideal conditions. Yesterday it was sunny and 20 degrees, but tomorrow it won't be. And that's very normal. The kind of things that we look at on resumes for hobbies and interests are things like hiking, camping, fishing, boating, and any winter activities in particular. Hydrometrics, winter work is uh, time sensitive sometimes. We can't put it off until it's nice, and it's rarely nice. So having that enjoyment of being outside, no matter the weather conditions, is extremely valuable if you want to have a career in field work. And again, like Lorelei said, the ability to work independently is very important. Problem solving skills and troubleshooting with no assistance is critical. You're often in places without cell service, so you're not able to phone and ask for help. This applies to the technical work, but it also applies to things like logistics for trip planning, like where am I going to eat? What do I do when the road is closed due to flooding? You have to think those things through on your own and on your feet. And working in teams as well is very important. It's as equally as important as working independently. My fieldwork is very much in the winter a team effort. You spend a week or more in a truck or a helicopter with one or two other people, and you have to work with them. There's no walking away or doing anything different. So being able to be effective within that team is a very important skill.
And you touched really well on the end of that with our next question about communication and colleagues. So over time, over your careers, how has communication with your colleagues developed as a woman in the field? And how important has it been to learn how to be direct and clear in your communication, especially working in teams, especially working in somewhat difficult fieldwork conditions? Lots of different instances can come up. So what's your experience with that? We'll start with Stephanie. You guys can also talk back and forth if you feel like you're building off ideas together.
I would like to think that my communication skills have improved over time. Choosing what subjects and conversations to engage in is based on your colleagues' personalities, I think is the most important. Knowing your audience. There is some people who will spend an entire week at a truck with you and not say a word and be completely comfortable. I talk a lot and I know that, but I'm equally as comfortable with that person listening to the radio. So knowing who you are with and recognizing those personality traits in your coworkers or colleagues is extremely important. Lorelei?
Yeah, I agree. I think those relationships with your colleagues, they range depending on who you're with. I know that it's been since the beginning of my career to now, it's actually been something that I've seen a great improvement in over time. As far as how much easier it is to actually communicate any of your concerns or just talk about the work in general as you move forward. So yeah, I agree. You do spend a lot of hours with people, and it's great when you hit it off, and it can feel like you're hanging out in high school and you're just like doing the work, and it's just, those are the greatest days. But typically, if you're out in the field and somebody, I'm a talker too, and if somebody doesn't want to talk, that's okay too, because you're out there because you love nature, and you got that too. So.
Definitely. I think it's important too that we should touch on maybe difficult circumstances in field work as a woman, and how being direct and clear in our communication was a way that we have overcome difficult situations, or how to learn how to be direct, because it's not always easy. Sometimes we're in different types of situations safety-wise, or perhaps many of us have had circumstances where we've shared an idea and it's kind of been overlooked or brought up by a male colleague instead. Have you guys had experiences like this before?
Yeah, I would say that my advice would be for somebody, if I had to go back and give Lorelei advice 20 years ago, I would say to address the issue immediately. So if I'm the lead on a project and I show up somewhere and the individuals that we're meeting automatically address my male coworker when I'm the lead on the project, I just correct it immediately. And then you don't harbor any resentment or dwell on that fact. Just kind of be assertive right away. And whether that's talking to a colleague when you're out in the field together, or you're going out independently and there's an expectation of you that you're not comfortable with. For instance, like I said, I used to test private wells. If there was somebody's house that I felt uncomfortable going into or uncomfortable being there alone, I would tell Lorelei 20 years ago to absolutely not go there and just say, I'm not going. So just communicate directly, what is your concern, and there's no other way to address anything other than to start with that conversation right away.
I think not being uncomfortable addressing a need, just be direct and clear. I need you to pull the boat over to the shore so I can use the washroom, as opposed to, could we take a break? I need to be very direct and very clear, and be knowing how to differentiate between a need and a want. I want to go eat lunch right now. I need to use the washroom. Those are two very different things. And sometimes we assume that people understand what we're saying when we're trying to avoid an uncomfortable topic, but they don't. They rarely do. So you have to be very blunt. I'm going behind the truck. I'm going to use the washroom. Stay in your seat. And that is, it avoids anything awkward happening. And that doesn't just apply to simple situations like that. When you have a more complicated need with a supervisor, be very direct and very clear and very open. Your privacy is important, and you can communicate a need while still remaining private. So very direct, very clear, and no room for interpretation is very important.
I agree with that.
Definitely. So we already kind of touched on the next question, but navigating and overcoming barriers with colleagues, particularly men that have had different experiences and expectations than you in the field. Are there any traits or skills that you've had to develop to navigate these sometimes difficult situations?
Yeah, I think that communication is a big deal. And I think that it's very easy when you first start out in the field as a woman in a male dominated field to have your confidence kind of whittled away if you don't speak up for yourself. You also have to be willing to put yourself out there and try. So, a lot of times that I've been concerned or worried about something, I kind of just throw that fear aside and I just embrace it. So, like, for example, and this isn't particularly with a colleague, but I was learning how to back up boats up north, and some fishermen were standing on the boat dock and they were just heckling me. They were making fun of the fact that a woman's backing up this big boat, and everybody was having a good laugh. And you know what? I messed up a lot. I couldn't get it straight. They were making me nervous. And then I just decided, there's really no negative outcome to this other than I learned how to back up a trailer. So I just calmed myself down, and my male coworker or supervisor at the time was very supportive. He didn't come in and correct me, like take the vehicle away from me. He didn't do it for me, but I had to have the confidence to just keep on trying despite the heckling crowd. So I think like having the confidence to keep trying something or take the opportunity to do that, even if it's easier to shy away from it or not engage.
I agree. I've experienced similar things in the way of learning to drive a snowmobile for the first time. And we were at site and I was with my coworkers who were wonderfully supportive. And there was a mistake that was made that was witnessed by a contractor that happened to be at the site. And he had some very choice, interesting words to share because I was a woman. Which thankfully my coworkers were very supportive and stood by me in that, but it was quite the experience to have to overcome something like that in terms of confidence to get back on the horse in the way and continue to try to learn, because at the end of the day, as long as your coworkers are super supportive, that's the environment that you want to be in. It's a place that you're going to learn and grow and be able to do it for yourself. Stephanie, have you had similar experiences?
I have. The one thing that I was going to discuss as a skill would be patience. Recognizing that your coworkers or contractors or whoever it may be, they have a different reality than your own. I expect that when someone has been hired, they're able and willing to do the work. And other people have an expectation that you're going to fail. Their expectations are not going to change instantly. You often have to demonstrate that you're able to meet the job expectations before they'll accept that you can. So having patience with yourself and with your colleagues while you're sorting out that you can perform the task. And my example that I have written down is backing up a boat trailer. And it doesn't just apply to things like backing up boat trailers or snowmobiles. I tipped one in the field once and my coworker had to come and help me flip it back up. And
it's really hard to do on your own. You almost can't do it.
Yeah, like it's, and then the like funny look at you and it's like, I was like, I just messed up. But then the patience to just keep going with your coworkers or your contractors and yourself. And also has to do with the technical tasks, like doing an instrumentation install is technically difficult. And not only, it doesn't matter who you are, it takes some time to learn how to do it. And your coworkers' frustration with you learning, it will go away. So having that patience with yourself and with them, that their reality is just different than yours. And we hope that we can teach them that patience as we demonstrated ourselves. So that's worked out for me. I had an instance where I was sent to go pick up a nitrogen tank out of the back of the truck. And as I came around the corner with the nitrogen tank over my shoulder, my much older male coworker was startled. And I was like, well, what's the matter? He's like, well, I didn't think you'd be able to get that out of the truck. And that was very satisfying, that he was pleased I could do it. And I was pleased that I did it. And those moments, if you notice them and you hang on to them, and they will encourage you to go forward while you're learning, and the patience grows in yourself and in your coworkers.
Something I would add too is I always say, especially to female summer or seasonal staff that we have, is work smarter, not harder. It's true that a colleague who's much bigger and stronger than you will be able to just do a lot of things quickly, faster, or if they're taller, they can reach all the equipment up the bank easily. Like there are some like natural advantages, but really it doesn't really affect whether the work actually gets done. And there are multiple ways to do things. And often working smarter, not harder is also safer. So, so it's okay to slow it down a little bit. Take your time. I might take 3 trips where somebody else could take 1, but ultimately the work is getting done, and that's what it takes to do it. So.
Definitely. So at this point, it's been mentioned that you guys have had many, many years in the field. And at this stage of your career, you both have leadership roles. So how has your fieldwork experience supported your career growth? And what does balance look like for you now between field and leadership roles?
My experience was that my progression through my career has been based on my fieldwork. The supervisory roles I took on had fieldwork as a requirement. In my department, I don't think it's possible to successfully supervise staff that are doing this complicated work without having that experience yourself. We have to train and not only help junior staff, we always have to help senior staff as well, in things like troubleshooting. As well, my new position that I've I took on in the last year involves working with different agencies like the USGS and basins like the St. Marie Milk and the Poplar Rivers. And having been to the sites that we're discussing and having done the fieldwork has allowed me to participate and contribute to those conversations on how to best manage those sites based on having been on the ground. And it has been invaluable in those discussions. The techs that are working on the ground gain invaluable knowledge and very thorough knowledge of a basin, just driving around and working the sites. My current fieldwork is very limited. The current situation the world is in has limited what we do. I currently would participate in things like field audits and training. I've become a little more removed on my technical knowledge of things like the hydroacoustics and the instrumentation. I still really enjoy fieldwork, and I really like running an ice auger and flying in helicopters. So that's things I would like to continue to do. However, that's going to be pretty limited from going on in. And I definitely won't be the lead anymore. I would take a backseat to the techs who have much more technical knowledge. I chose to step away from fieldwork in order to spend more time at home with my family. The opportunities existed and I took them. I very much miss fieldwork in a full-time basis, but I don't regret my decisions. I still have the ability to put my feet in the water occasionally, and it's still very satisfying to go out and do so.
It's awesome that you're at a point of your career where you can do that and you can participate in the field, but you can also help manage and lead other people, which is pretty cool. What about you, Lorie?
Yeah, a lot of my work since I have been focused mostly on surface water quality monitoring involves that just routinely at a certain time of year. I do supervise staff in the summer that are carrying out some of that work. And, now it's to a point where, I can help them coordinate, train them, and mentor and get those, the satisfaction from teaching somebody else these skills. I know how much when I was a student and when I was first starting my career, how much I really enjoyed it. And I really liked it when I had really good supervisors that would take time to show me things, especially when you're working in the field. It's not always just head down looking at the very thing that you're working on. It's a whole environmental system that you're looking at. So like Stephanie said, you get these great observations over time. You understand your system, you see it over many years. In Saskatchewan, my monitoring is basically from about mid-Last Mountain Lake up to at the most like the Churchill Clearwater rivers. And so in that zone, I'll see, the environment change over time from wet years to dry years, and I'll get to know how those systems respond, different spring freshets and all that sort of thing. But now I get to share that information with other people, and I get to, kind of impart on them all of the knowledge that I have. And I really, really like that. I like seeing them succeed. I also like now tweaking field work to just like make it perfect. Like I'm like always prepared. The days are like really low stress because I've already solved all those problems. And so I wouldn't say it's boring because you're still going out to see it in a different way every single time. But I do enjoy that. And I, like Stephanie, I enjoy the opportunity too to contribute my knowledge to any other projects or work that's going on in the agency.
That's awesome. I totally agree with the being able to be in a role for a certain period of time and seeing your site progress in a different way, but then maybe stepping into new roles and being able to view it from a different perspective. I've kind of had that experience working with Mountain Water Futures for this is the 6th year on our project. So from its inception until now, I've seen quite a few different master's and PhD students come through and undergrad students that have kind of graduated into master's roles, which has been a really fun opportunity, especially for the science part of things. There's a lot that can change in the mountains in 6 years, but having that progression has been a really neat experience. I can only imagine it over the length of your careers so far. So as leaders as well, what is your advice for people leaders and decision makers on how we can make fieldwork a safer place, especially for women?
Yeah, so work to me is made safer by listening to the people in the field and finding solutions that are both practical and improve safety. Blindly applying rules for the sake of applying rules makes the work sometimes harder and potentially less safe. Field work in the biological sciences is very diverse and it doesn't typically fit a cookie cutter safety approach. So improving communication and taking the advice of those people in the field, I think they're in the best position often to judge risk. And having studied risk in my master's and perception of risk, I think that people gain this experience over time and they see the probability and the likelihood of these events. Nobody in the field that's been working as long as we have would willingly do something that is really risky, especially it sounds like Stephanie's in really remote locations. You don't have a lot of options if things go bad. So kind of a guideline that I follow is that, some terrible thing happening or some, safety hazard is always a series of bad decisions. So when I see that I'm able to make a decision and, should I take this risk or not, the sooner I cut off that tree of decision making, the more likely that I'm going to remain safe. And so I try to impart that on staff. And that's something that I think leaders should understand about people in the field is that, yes, the data is important and yes, you have to get this work done, but you have to take into account all the series of decisions that could lead to something potentially being unsafe. And you need to listen to your field staff when you're coming up with solutions.
I had something very similar as well. Acknowledging concerns that staff bring forward is very important. Discussing those concerns, they're valid enough that this staff member has brought it forward to you. So to them, this is a real valid concern and should be something that can be addressed. The solution might be something simple like a conversation with advice on how to deal with things. Like Lorelei mentioned, like don't get out of your truck if you don't feel comfortable. We had a short conversation before about prep, and that is something that you can do. You can sit in your truck and you can talk out your window. You don't need to get out of your truck to talk to the public. You can keep yourself safe. It might be a different piece of PPE. My concern when I started was that this wasn't when I started. This was after I started in Saskatchewan. They issued me a life jacket that had extremely large holes for the arms and was meant for someone that was quite a bit taller than me and was shaped like a man. And when you wear that life jacket and you hit the water, the life jacket comes up around your head and is not safe. It doesn't perform its task. I brought my concern forward and we went from that style of jacket back to a paddling vest, which is much more adjustable, much easier to wear, and much safer. So having that conversation was not easy for my boss to have because he'd already made a financial commitment to here's your life jacket. And when I turned around and said, this does not work for me and I can demonstrate to you why, it took a bit of convincing. So standing up and for yourself when it's things like PPE is something that management needs to listen to. And I hope that I do that based on my experience. But as leaders, listening to the staff's concerns is critical.
I think too, something to consider is that we spoke earlier before the talk about this as well, but try to find another female in the field. She doesn't have to be exactly in your discipline. In the agency, we have females that are in hydrometrics as well. You can try to find another female that does a lot of field work and get their advice on how to approach these things, especially when, what's going to come back to you is like, well, then tell me what the solution is. Well, sometimes, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. Finding another, I could call Stephanie and say, let me know again that life jacket that you find fits really well. And that'll save me the looking around and I'll be likely to find a solution or something that I can suggest up as a solution.
Definitely. So moving into our last question, it's also based around safety, but more from choosing a safe workplace perspective. So what are questions to ask future employers about safety in the workplace, especially as a woman? woman's perspective? And what is your advice to people who may be experiencing unsafe conditions in the field? And we also have a slide with some advice here that's going to be put up that both of you can speak on. It's your own advice.
I was just going to say that I didn't do this when I first started applying for jobs, but now I think I would. Some questions like, what procedures and policies do you have in place to ensure safety in the workplace? How do you support a safe working environment? Is there an active occupational health and safety committee in your agency or in the company that you've applied to work in? Do you have a culture of safety? And ask them what is that culture like? And how does the company support appropriate and functional PPE? So those are just a few of the things that I thought of, but I think anybody actually should ask those questions if you have a job like this, where you're going to be in the field and there's potential harm to your person.
Asking about a working alone policy as well is something you can ask in an interview. I know our department, we always carry, as part of our working alone policy, you have to carry on your person your inReach device, which has, so you constantly have the ability to call for help. And we have two-way communication at all times, even with no cell service. Asking about the office culture, asking about women's hiring initiatives, like the one that Water Survey has on right now. Things like that are good questions, and good managers will be able to answer those confidently.
Yeah, I agree with that. So do you want to peel through our advice slide?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take the first one. Identify your strengths. I think this is really important. It takes a team to get any work done, and nobody really does it alone. Like we said before, maybe you're not, able to carry the nitrogen tank, but, you have other strengths, and there's a reason why you have that job. And, there's a way to get the work done. And just because you don't, have a 10 out of 10 in all of the aspects of the job doesn't mean that, you aren't exceptional in some of the aspects. So try to identify that for yourself so that you know your value in the workplace.
Asking for help is very important. Being direct and asking for help when you need it. Telling your supervisors and your coworkers exactly what you need so they can support your work getting done. I rarely had to ask for help until I was having children. And then all of a sudden there was this point where I could no longer lift, and I just physically wasn't able. And I was not pleased with the fact that I now had to ask for help. I was very impressed with my coworkers because I was very apprehensive, and they stepped up immediately. There was no pushback. It was just, could you please put this thing on the tailgate for me because it weighs 90 pounds and I probably shouldn't lift this. And I remember standing on the riverbank in Saskatoon at a training course, blowing up a Zodiac when I was 8 months pregnant with a foot pump, and having people who did not work with me approach my coworkers, be like, should she be doing that? And they were like, she's fine. She will ask for help if she needs it. And they were just, they knew well enough to ask my coworkers before they approached me. And then my coworkers thought it was hilarious. And like, they thought you shouldn't be blowing up the foot pump. So it was, when I needed it, I asked for it, and I got it. And when sometimes it's apparent what you need and you won't ask for it, but your coworkers and your people around you will see it and sometimes offer. But don't be afraid to ask for help, because no one that's a decent coworker is going to be afraid to help you or be offended when you need help. They will help you without question.
Yeah. I think that builds into the build a network, which is acknowledge the support that you do have. So where you do have support from your employer and coworkers or a mentor that you have, and even your family and friends to support the work that you do, because a lot of it is away from home, which traditionally women do take on a lot of roles within the household and responsibilities as it relates to the family. And so, you do often need a lot of people supporting your work. And so it's important to acknowledge who those people are and lean on them when you need a boost of motivation or advice. You know, I have some people at work that, you know, are super, they cheer me on all the time. They're really, really supportive. And, you know, if you're having a bit of a day where you're second guessing yourself or feeling a little insufficient, you know, it can be great to talk to them and, you know, have them kind of wake you up a little bit. So. Do you got the next one there, Stephanie?
Yeah. The advocating for yourself, speaking up in situations where you're at work where resources provided do not leave the level of safety that you require, and suggest solutions. I already spoke about the life jacket. That happens often. Most safety equipment is not designed for women, and it's not designed for people that are short. I'm not a tall human being, and I had to ask for a new office chair because I needed one that sat lower down to the floor, because the one that they gave me that was in my cubicle when I got there was not working for me. It was giving me back issues. So advocating for yourself for things simply like a desk chair, or something that I thought was critically important was my life jacket fitting me properly. Things like chest waders, having chest waders that fit properly is incredibly important, because if you've ever slogged through a creek with algae growing and grass growing, it's, if your feet are slopping around inside of your waders, it becomes very difficult to keep your footing. So if you have equipment that may not fall under the PPE that is still not working for you, speak up. Your boss, your coworkers, everyone wants you to come home safe at the end of the day and to do the job to the best of your abilities. And having that good, well-fitting equipment or a desk chair that fits you properly is going to meet everyone's goals at the end of the day. So advocate for yourself. Asking for accommodations for things like your family is not unheard of. Don't be afraid to do it, because if you need to move a field trip because of a Christmas concert, your bosses are likely going to be like, well, that's reasonable. Let's move the field trip to the week before. So stand up and advocate for yourself. There is asking for having accommodations for your family. Traditionally, in my department 15 years ago, was unheard of. People did not take paternity leave. That was, you were considered a bad employee, even though it was normal within the rest of the government. And now it is absolutely normal that, and it's very much encouraged. It's, the expectation is that you are going to take paternity leave. It's not that you're going to stay home. Very long ago, you were encouraged to have your kids not during the busy season. You should not have a baby during runoff. You should not get married during runoff. You should, your work should reflect nothing to do with your personal life. There was no flexibility, and now it has drastically changed. So stand up, say what you need, and ask for it, because it's not a weakness to want to spend time with your children or take care of your sick parent, or, like I said, attend your children's Christmas concert. You're a good person for doing that. So stand up for it.
We would say also embrace change. So, you know, your personal life and your work goals will change over your career, and, you know, don't feel bad about that, and moving forward and choosing a different, you know, career goal. And I think Stephanie's a great example of that. You know, she prioritizes her family life, and that is a part of a well-balanced work-life balance. And to say, you know, I would like to pursue this so that, you know, I can take my knowledge and help people who are still working in the field, but now this is the right place for me. I really identified with what you said about not being able to lift things after having kids. I like took Pilates classes. I did all kinds of like workouts and ab workouts and running and biking and doing all kinds of things to try to get that strength back. I just couldn't. And I knew that when I tried to lift heavy things, I just felt like, yeah, you know, that's not going to happen. So maybe even just as you age, you just aren't digging the excessive amount of field work, which, I'm 43 years old and I have started wondering, like, will I want to be doing this when I'm 50? Will I want to be putting around? And I certainly worked with people that were well into their 50s and still doing field work. But what I noticed is they just kind of, took it easy and like appreciated things and just went at a pace that they could tolerate. So, life changes, your goals change. And when you decide what you want to do, just embrace it. Don't feel bad about the choices that you're making.
I used to be able to reach into freezing cold water and change parts on like through a hole in the ice and grab things, and it was no bother. You just wipe your hand off, stick it back in your mittens. I can't do that anymore. My hand freezes up and I'm in pain for an hour. So things change, embrace it. And now I know I can't, if I'm going to stick my hand in the water, I better use my left one. So on that part, trusting your instincts. If you find yourself in a situation that you don't feel safe or you're being unfairly treated, then that is what is happening to you, and that is very real. Working to make it safe and communicating your concerns will help to address the problem. Don't minimize your own experience. It is real. It's an issue for you, and it's going to be stressful. So dealing with it is the best way to addressing the problem is the best way to deal with it. However, walking away is an option. I was in a not very good working situation, and it was very empowering to me to realize that although I was in a very good government job with doing field work that I loved, I had a not supportive supervisor, and I left. And it was life-changing, and it was amazing. And that ability to walk away is, mine was rather extreme, but it could be your employer, it could be an unsafe situation in the field. If you have an experience with a member of the public, walk away, close the door on your truck. You don't have to stay. And if you have an unsafe situation at work, you can walk away from that as well. Phone your supervisor, figure out if there's something else to do. And if it's unsafe, and then it's not necessary. So trust your instincts. It took me a long time to figure out that that was an okay thing to do, that having that, mine is mostly dealing with the public, where those situations are uncomfortable situations where you're trying to get away from a situation. Is you don't have to be polite, you don't have to be nice. If someone is being rude to you or making you uncomfortable, just get in your truck and close the door. And as a woman, I had probably been conditioned to be polite and be nice in the face of someone being upset. And it took me some time to figure out that when an angry farmer is yelling at you, you don't have to stand there and try and make them feel better. My defense was to be overly nice. And because usually when they come trucking up and are about to remount that government person, they don't expect someone like me to pop out of the truck and with a giant smile and a hello, and it usually throws them off guard. But you don't have to be treated like that. You can walk away. That's so trust your instincts. It can be on a very large scale about your employment situation, or it can be something very small about, like, I don't want to go in the creek right there, I'm going to go over there and do it. So and about going over there and doing it comes into never packing light, if Lorelei wants to talk about that.
Yeah. So I would just like to say I've been in the field with so many people, and like as a woman, I feel like I've always been uber prepared. I know if you're taking a helicopter or something, you might be limited by weight, but I literally bring like 2 sets of ski pants, 2 sets of pants, 4 sets of socks. Like, I just imagine how bad I would feel if I got wet and then I had to continue working like that. So, bring some extra clothing and items that ensure that you're going to be comfortable. Any medications that you think that you might need, or any other personal hygiene things. I always bring like toilet paper and a bunch of extra stuff that, nobody else is bringing for you. I often go in the field with a lot of extra food. I always think, yeah, it's fine if the day is just a 12-hour day as you expect it to be. But if you're up at the Clearwater River and your vehicle breaks down and you find that you're somewhere for a lot longer than you thought you'd be, there's nothing worse than being really hungry. So making sure that you have, water and food with you. Often I find my male colleagues will literally have like no extra clothes, no food. And I just think like, you don't get mine, so you better bring your own. So yeah, never pack light. I mean, you can have like a secondary little bag that you like throw that, you just keep under the seat or something like that. But do try to keep yourself comfortable out there.
Extra snacks. Always
Extra snacks.
Yes.
Thank you so much, both of you, for your wonderful advice and all of your stories. So that kind of concludes the talking section. And very quickly at the end, we're just going to let both of you plug some of the things that you're doing in your own workplaces for supporting women and any job opportunities that may be available.
I'll go first. So the Water Security Agency has several full-time positions with varying degrees of field work associated with it. So there's a benthic invertebrate biologist, we have fish and water quality ecologist and hydrometric technicians. A lot of those positions have field activities at different times of year. We also hire several seasonal positions in all of those fields as well, including piping plovers and that work that happens on Lake Diefenbaker. And those positions are mostly for data collection, and a lot of them are taken by students, but not necessarily. Sometimes it's people that are just like entering their careers. You can find them on our website at what's my website? Well, we'll put it up, right?
Yes, yeah.
The Water Security Agency website, yeah. I was thinking about my email. Anyway, it's under careers.
Yeah.
And you'll see a lot of them coming in from like January to now, basically, where you'll see lots of those seasonal positions. They're really great for getting those field skills, especially if you're somebody who hasn't had the opportunity to do a lot of like recreational boating and all that kind of stuff in your life. It's a good place to get those skills.
The Water Survey of Canada is part of Environment Canada and Climate Change. We are currently running a recruitment process for women hydrologists. Sorry, I said that wrong. Women in hydrometric technologists. The competition is open until the end of 2022, and we run competitions based on the applicants. So Andrew's going to share that link as well, or someone is.
Yeah, I believe it's already in the chat there. Cece's got it.
Perfect. So we run the women recruitment process in conjunction with a regular one as well, and we just recently ran a competition, but we'll be running another one within the end of 2022. So if you have any interest in hydrometric work, this is a national competition. This isn't just in Saskatchewan. So any offices in, say, Edmonton, Calgary, Vernon, Richmond, all over the country, all the way out to Dartmouth, those offices will hire out of this pool as well. So if you have any interest in traveling or moving across Canada, there's opportunity there as well. It's not just for Saskatchewan. This would be a national competition. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing those opportunities. I hope that people will click on them in the chat and take advantage of the opportunity to apply. And we have a couple of really interesting questions that have come in. So I just want to take a moment here to ask. The first one is for you, Stephanie, which is, you mentioned that one of the things that you focus on when you're looking at an applicant in their resume is if they have experience with hiking or backpacking outdoors. But we know that the outdoor industry is one of the most racially segregated spaces out there, and it leads many of people of color feeling ostracized from outdoor recreation. And so how do you make sure this sort of racial disparity or bias doesn't creep into the hiring process, knowing that those opportunities, might be more accessible to white people and less accessible to people of color?
I can't really speak to that. I only do things like conduct interviews and scan resumes. It's completely blind. I can say that. We're just given resumes. We assess whether they meet criteria, like education criteria. So all we see is the application. We have no idea who you are. Often I can't tell from an application things like gender, like that's not listed. So the federal government hiring process, in my experience, has been blind. We only have your application. And you're assessed against very specific criteria, things like education. Things like the outdoor industry are assets when we're looking at doing an interview, and we'll probably ask you things like that. Are you comfortable working outside? And it's so that the applicants know within the hiring process, the job that they're stepping into and that they're accepting, we do have this expectation that you are going to spend time outside and in uncomfortable conditions. The federal government, in my experience, I'm very limited. I'm a very new manager. But my experience has been that it's blind. I can't tell anything about the applicants other than that, what they have put on the application. So it's kind of frustrating sometimes because you would like to be able to make those assessments, but if someone doesn't include that in their application, you're not screened out because of it. You're only screened in or out based on your merit.
All right, thank you. And the next question that we have is a really important one about interrupting bias. So many of the questions have seemed to focus on what women can do to avoid harassment or toxic environments. And how do we make sure that male field workers are responsible for fixing the environment as well? And I think one of the things that I would just offer there is that in this week's Global Water Futures e-news, I did do a feature on what can be done by everyone in leadership to make fieldwork more inclusive. And there's some articles and links there. If you're interested, that's one place you can have a look. But some of the things that we know are that leaders, as an example, can ask folks their pronouns and use them so that you're referring to people how they want to be referred to rather than risking misgendering someone, which could be harmful. Also, not assuming what anyone requires in terms of their personal space or safety or sanitation requirements. Asking folks what they need. And so a lot of, I think, what we've spoken about too in the preparations for this is about respect, right? And that everybody has the responsibility, to treat all of their colleagues with respect. But I'm wondering for both you, Lorelei, maybe we'll start, and then Stephanie, what else do you think that leaders, and men in particular, can really do to show that they are trying to create a welcoming environment and play a part in this dynamic?
Yeah, I would say that this is what makes it just that much more important to be direct. And when I said like lean on, the supports that you have, there certainly are men that when you bring up a concern and you tell them why it's a particular thing may be a concern or a struggle for you, that is typically not their life experience at all. It's not something they've experienced or that they've even thought about. And so, there will be some men at work or leaders at work that will hear that and say, that's someone else's legitimate experience. And I hear you, and I'm going to respond that way. There will be people who don't. And I think that's where Stephanie's advice comes in, where you need to decide, whether that's somewhere you actually want to be. And so, hopefully they do embrace it, but it is important to remember too, that sometimes people it really isn't their experience, and they really have no idea how you are being made to feel or what is happening from your perspective. So you need to communicate that and find out from there whether those individuals or those people or coworkers or employer are going to respond the way that they should.
Assuming that your supervisor or supervisors understand your experience is not the best way to go about it. direct and very blunt communication that this makes me uncomfortable and I do not like this has been my experience of making the most amount of change in the shortest amount of time. The culture in my work 15 years ago was very, very different, like very different. And being very upfront about this is not acceptable behavior is the key to making it change. It's if you tolerate it, it will continue. And if you make your concerns known and the behavior doesn't stop, it may be something that you need to walk away from. So, because 15 years ago when I started, the culture at my work had been the same for 100 years. There was no women. It was a very, very traditionalist mindset. You did your job and you didn't complain. And anything asking for accommodations, things like that, I don't like the way that you're talking to me, was seen as complaining. And it's not like that anymore. And it's because of people standing up and saying, we can't do this like this. You can't treat people like this. So speaking up and saying it's not acceptable is the way to go. They don't know unless you tell them.
Well, this has been fascinating, and I know we have a few more questions, but I think we have to end the formal hour of the Women in Water lecture series here. And for those of you that are at the GWF Young Professionals, I ask you to just please stay on, and we'll transition over into the networking portion, and we can carry on with some more of the questions there. But I would just like to thank everyone for attending today's event and for attending the rest of the 2021 Women in Water lecture series. We really appreciate all of you that have tuned in from over 26 countries this year to take part in this series. And we will be posting all of this year's season on YouTube on the Global Water Futures webpage, and we'll reach out and let you know when the lectures are there and you can reach back to enjoy them. And in particular, I'd really like to take the time to thank everyone who has participated in their attendance and who has also helped to make this series possible behind the scenes. A tremendous amount of work has gone into the Women in Water lecture series by Stacy Demansky from Global Water Futures. We've also been helped by Stephanie Merrill and Fred Ryben. And of course, the founder of this series, Corin Schuster-Wallace, Yolande Chasson and Ronald Fournier for their interpretation, and the captioning that has been provided by National Captioning Canada. And especially as well to our speakers for joining us today. None of this would have been possible without all of this tremendous effort, and we're really looking forward to welcoming you all next year in 2022 with another series that we'll be reaching out and providing details with later on. So if you would like to stay on and ask more questions, if you're one of the GWF Young Professionals, please do, and we'll just be patient with us for a couple of minutes here while we transition out of the webinar and into just the meeting format. And thank you so much for your participation. It's much welcome, and the captioning and the interpretation will end now. So thank you for that.